Well, turning to broader markets, let's bring in Peter McGuire, Chief Executive at XM, here live in studio at Barangaroo to go and discuss what's going on. Peter, in the breakdown, we're just talking about markets, what's going on at the moment. We're still having this disconnect between economic data and what the markets are doing.
Sure.
How long is this divergence going to last?
I don't know. It's just such an... We've never been here before. It's unknown. Everything's juiced up. We've baked everything in as far as numbers. The performance over the last 2.5 months has been extraordinary. And where does the Fed sit on all this? How long do they keep moving forward, prepared to just keep everything propped up? And, you even look at the airlines there and you think about what the impact is, and we'll get to that in a little bit as far as the oil, but that's a barometer as far as consumption across the world. And all of these particular industries, a lot of them, are hemorrhaged so heavily that is 6,000 the first number as far as Qantas is concerned? Are you going to see further cuts all the way through this? What's happening with Emirates? What's happening with Etihad? All of those big providers of services. It's a tough time.
Peter, there's been a lot of speculation about a second stimulus package in the United States. I think it's pretty much baked into the cake.
Sure.
We have Jerome Powell and Steve Mnuchin addressing Congress next week to discuss potential stimulus to policymakers there. In the past, we've seen that markets have tended to go and rally into these type of events. Is that like another sort of scenario you're looking at?
I think everything's front-loaded, David. There's no doubt about that. Everything's baked in. News and anything that's really groundbreaking, it doesn't really affect markets too heavily. We understand what the Fed's prepared to do. I think everyone's mindful that they'll probably throw a couple more trillion at this. We're 4 months out from an election. There's no doubt that President Trump has only got one agenda, and that is to try and stay in power. So we're going to see, I think, the framework of that election campaign really come to the fore over the next matter of weeks. So it's going to be a very fascinating time as far as volatility. As far as Mnuchin's concerned, he needs to see a ratchet up and keep the whole thing moving forward. So stimulus is here to stay, and you'll run that across all of Europe, run that across all of the UK and Australia, of course. It's going to be a tough next 3 months.
So when we look at the different markets to gauge sentiment, oil is one that's tough to read, I suppose, at the best of times, Peter. Is that
Absolutely.
fair enough to say that? But it just seems every night we get some sort of different direction coming through for the price of oil, and for different reasons as well. I read one note, and the jump that we saw through the overnight was because Russia said that it would cut exports of its flagship Urals crude oil by 40%.
Yep.
I look at another source, and it's to do with the fact that those receiving jobless benefits in the US fell below 20 million.
Of course, in the session before, it fell very sharply.
7% down.
And that was on coronavirus fears.
Demand.
That's right. And then you've got inventories at record numbers. You've got US production now, it was, I think, through about 11.1, 11.2 million barrels a day. So there's huge production. You've got OPEC Plus that's fractured in the sense, where do they play on the global scene? The situation in Venezuela is just a nightmare. So all of those impacts, and then you're looking at as far as consumption. What's going on? Traditionally, summer driving season. Traditionally, people are driving cars all over the world.
And people not taking public
flights.
Transport, we hear.
Yep.
Obviously, that's not a huge impact, but still, it's adding
consumption.
to the narrative.
It's consumption, and then you're looking at air travel. So all of those parts, I feel as though, again, it's front-loaded. Everything's been baked in. It's had a very, very heavy move to the upside. And I feel as though it's going to be very range-bound. I think it's going to be softer than where we're seeing prices at the moment. Maybe a couple of dollars taken out of it in the short term, because I think confidence is the great thing. That's what's driving this market as far as sentiment. And at the moment, there's that euphoria, I feel, is starting to dissipate quickly from the market.
What will be the trigger? What is going to stop this music?
What's going to stop it? The realisation that... I think it just ratchets up from here. 6% of Americans, they say, have had COVID. There's 20 million people plus, and you've got 94% to go. So as it rolls through the economy, and it rolls through as far as a long tail event, it's going to take many years for this to unfold, and I think it's just going to be a tough time. The Fed, what happens with Trump, what happens with China, and so many other moving parts.
Haven't even talked about that yet today.
No.
That's a huge thing.
Peter, always great to go and chat. Thank you for coming and joining us in the studio, and enjoy your weekend.
Very much.
And we'll speak again soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
Peter McGuire there joining us from XM.